Hi, guys. Welcome to Joy 101, the podcast. I'm so happy that you're here. We are midsummer. And I was just thinking about one on one time in life. You know how sometimes you do family vacations or family dinners or you go out with your friends, et cetera, et cetera. And I did something last week where I took my 16-year-old niece on a little mini vacation, just the two of us, and we'd never done that before. And it was one of these spectacular vacations, not because of where we went or what we did, because we were together. And she asked me during the vacation, I was like, "What was your favorite part?" She goes, "Oh, I love the spa. I love this." And then she said, "Well, what was your favorite part?" And I said, "My favorite part was watching you." And watching her kind of come out of her shell, watching her blossom, listening to her talk about school, about life, about boys, about everything. And I realized, had it not been for that time together alone, we would have never had that conversation. She would have been 17 and then she would have gone off to college and then, life rolls on. So it was a reminder to me, and just today, in fact, I'm in our office. My 7-year-old came here to my office to spend part of the day with me. So I think whenever we carve up time, which we all have to all the time, it's the way we live. But I think every now and then, taking out some time to do something individually, to do something one on one, and I feel like I learned stuff too. I'm not like, Miss Aunt Hody, the advice giver. I feel like I was on the receiving end and I learned a lot about her. I also learned that the less I talk, the more she talks. I learned that she has tons of wisdom, my niece does. I learned that not everyone's going to be on my schedule. I like to get up early and exercise, and she kind of got up later, but I realized we met in the middle. So good advice is so important and it can come from everywhere. And I'm so excited about my next guest because if you want to talk good advice, I've got two words for you: Jefferson Fisher. Jefferson Fisher. Okay, so some of you may know Jefferson Fisher already. He's a former trial attorney. He actually still is a trial attorney, but he started giving great life advice. Advice about boundaries, about saying no, about how to ask for a raise, all these things. So, in his words, he started off as an attorney, which is an observer of people and a way to argue. And he realized that arguing doesn't win, but listening often does. So he said God kind of steered him into this other profession. I heard him on the Mel Robbins podcast and on Diary of a CEO and a bunch of other places. And now I can't unsee him. And I have this beautiful conversation with Jefferson. He taught me things. He has great advice. If you are in a relationship and not communicating, Jefferson Fisher is your guy. If you are concerned about how am I going to ask my boss for a raise, I'm too afraid, Jefferson Fisher is the guy. If you're somebody who's just trying to put some boundaries up because you're saying yes to everybody and you're like an empty vessel, Jefferson Fisher is your guy. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Jefferson Fisher. Okay, first of all, I'm so happy to be with you for multiple reasons. Number one, you're so funny because the minute I saw you somewhere on Insta or whatever, you're all I see now. Like it's
Oh
like
no.
when I when
Okay.
I when I wanted to buy a Toyota Sienna,
Yeah.
all I ever see on the I'm like, there's another. Oh my God, they're everywhere.
Yeah, they're
So
everywhere.
you're everywhere, which I think is so cool. Tell me about whether you hit the scene as kind of an explosion and then you're here, or was it a slow build? Because if you're looking for advice on how to speak to people, how to be calm, all boundaries, you seem to have a ton of answers. So, how did you make your emergence
Yeah.
onto this platform?
Oh, I started probably a little over 3 years ago or so, and I just an attorney. I'm still an attorney. My wife's an attorney. We have two young kids, and right around that time, I thought, well, I was at a big defense firm, and I wanted to go off and do my own thing. I'm
Yeah.
in my late 20s, like I can do this. And so at that time, I thought, well, I need to be on social media, and so I started making videos shortly after on like what can I make that's just content for
Hmm.
good in the world. There's no shortage of good things in the world, so how could I just help? And I thought, well, people think that attorneys know how to argue, so I was like, how can I made a video on how to argue like an attorney, but it was different than most people think. Instead of trying to win, it's trying to understand. And I think there's a lot of
Mm.
contrast there. And I gave advice on not only my own personal experience. I'm a fifth generation attorney. So everybody in my
Wow.
family is an attorney. And then, if you've been married, if you have kids, there's a lot of lessons there. My faith as well. And so I just started answering questions, and I never in a million years would have thought this is where it would be. There was never a, let me go online and this is what I'm working towards, and one day I'm going to
Yeah.
have this. No, in like I barely put some stuff out, and then it just went nuts.
Boom. Well,
Exactly.
you have like almost 7 million followers. I was looking I was like, wait, what? I
Yeah.
mean, this is crazy. But I did have to go way back because I love to look for a commencement address. I always feel like that's a real tell.
Yeah.
And no matter who I interview, I'm like, I wonder if they've ever given a commencement address. Well, I
Yeah.
saw one that you gave
Oh
at your
man,
own school.
I did.
And you were, first of all, adorable. Secondly, your timing and your humor. So I know your advice works, but life, I feel like, especially in this field of communication, which I'm intimately familiar with too, it's like a lot of things are about timing and how you go about it. When you were a
Yeah.
little kid, was this just one of your things? Like you had that thing, people laughed when you said things?
Yeah, I was definitely a ham. I was definitely a ham.
Yeah.
I see myself in my son now, who is the exact same way. I put on a lot of little performances. I had like little mock trials, and I did mock trial even competitively in college. But yeah, it was definitely something that's always kind of been there, and to see this kind of turn into that path because a lot of it is also creative in some
Yeah.
sense of how you come up with videos and how can I distill things and make it really practical and digestible. And so it's funny how God's going to just use these gifts in a way that says, okay, you started in law, but I'm going to switch you over to
Turn you
start
this
doing,
way.
yeah. And so it's just been a really full circle moment that I just never ever I feel like some people get, they climb towards something and other people get pushed towards something. And that was
Hmm.
definitely mine where I just never, I had a friend, Hoda, I'm not kidding. When I was on Instagram, right before I started making videos, I had a friend who was another attorney and he had 1,000 followers on Instagram. And I was like, 1,000 followers? How could you ever get 1,000 followers? Because everybody I had was just friends from, high school and,
Yeah.
and law school.
Yeah. Your people. Well,
Yeah.
what I love about this is what's interesting to me about you is you're an attorney and attorneys know how to argue or and as you said now to understand the person you're opposite from. But I feel like the stuff you're talking about is nothing about that. I mean, it is about communicating, but it's really about life. It's about connecting. It's about understanding. It's more like spirit and in your, being as
Mm,
opposed to how am I going to organize these thoughts so I can say it in the right way. I mean, so what? Some of the worst communicators I know, I connect with soul to soul. You
right.
feel their vibe. I mean, there are certain people, Jefferson, when I walk in a room, I feel totally at ease. And there are some people, I may or may not know them, I feel kind of like my back's up. And I'm sure you've had these kind of feelings in the courtroom and among friends. Why is it that there are people who instantly put us at ease? We're like, oh, I like that person. I don't know them, but I like them.
Yeah. It has something to do with part charisma.
Yeah.
I think it's deeper than that because charisma is not something you can exactly, you can say charismatic things. You can
Hmm.
give compliments. You can, give things with honey instead of vinegar. Warmth is
Hmm.
something different. Warmth is
Yeah.
a feeling that needs no words, that they just all of a sudden your shoulders relax. If I were to, ask you, what's a memory in your past where you have to, like for me, I can go back to being in my grandparents' living room and I can feel the texture of the couch
Mm,
and I can
mm,
smell it. And I just know when my grandmother came in, she just put me at ease, right? Of
mm.
just, hey, baby, come here, darling. Like you're good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And there's certain people in your life that whenever the world's really reactive, they stay
yeah,
just steady. And we're always looking for these anchors in
yeah.
personalities that when the ship's rocking, you
Hmm.
don't want to go for the person who's really reactive. You're looking for the person who's really steady. And when they can bring that warmth that it's just a glow about them that you go, I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about
Hmm.
their personality that says, I'm safe, I'm welcome, and I'm enough. And when you find that person in your life, you
Mm,
cling to them because we know what it's like on the opposite when there's that person that whenever you're around, your anxiety spikes, you feel way
hmm.
more, everything just feels off kilter and you feel
Hmm.
emotionally reactive. It's the people that decide that they want to spend the time with you. And usually they're a lot slower in the way they enunciate, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, that's the cue.
Oh, by the way, that's so interesting. I had an instant parenting thought when you said that because there was one day, my daughter Haley will never hear this, so what do I care? So she was throwing things in the trash that mattered to me. It was one of those days where she was in some kind of defiance. So
Hmm.
there was a poem that I loved. She took it, dropped it in the trash, and I sat on the couch and I was calm.
Hmm.
Okay. Then she took my computer and put it in a trash can. I was calm. I sat there. It was like I was thinking about people who used to sit at lunch counters, not to compare, but quiet
Yeah,
resistance. I'm like, I'm going to be the eye of the hurricane right here. I'm going to be
that's right.
totally calm. And after about 10 minutes, she pulled everything out. She came over on the couch. She sat with me and she's cuddled with me and said, oh, I'm sorry. And then explained whatever was bothering her at the time. But do you use this in parenting? Because you have a 6 and an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And I know that that must be one of the things that helps.
Oh, yeah. It's always knowing that for the most part, we're just big kids. And so like my daughter this morning, we're under huge jet lag. My daughter is just in tears this morning.
Yeah.
And there's no anything that she would typically like to eat, decides she now hates. Right. And she's short-tempered, super whiny. And just like you, we could have come in
Yes.
and
Yes.
said, you have to fall under what I say is acceptable and
Mhm.
not acceptable. But with like children, it's the same when they were a baby, when they're screaming, it's like you're not going to get mad that they're crying. It's you go,
Yeah.
okay, I see that they're hungry, they're tired. Like just those two
Yes.
right there.
Yes. Yes.
They're overwhelmed by something. It's the same for us. And so it
Hmm.
helps me so much, and especially in my kids, I see so much of myself in them that not only had me getting more compassion for myself,
Hmm.
because it's like, why would I talk to my kids the same way I talk to myself? Sometimes it's
Hmm.
so that those checks and balances of knowing that when she was starting to complain and she didn't want the cereal bar that she loves, I was
Yeah.
like, you just need me to hold you? Yes. And of course
Oh,
I'm holding her. I was like,
yeah.
are we just sleepy? It's like that right there is all they really need. And I think deep down, a lot of the times it really is all it comes down to it
Right.
is we're still looking for dealing with those basic needs.
You know, I think we spend so much of our lives waiting for the big moments, the birthdays, the vacations, the milestones. But the truth is, some of the happiest moments show up on the most ordinary days. So, like this, I'll stop into a CVS because I need one thing. Somehow, the best part of the trip is never the thing I came for. So maybe I'll grab a delicious Well Market snack, or maybe I'll wander over to the Joyward collection. It's really full of fun, cool, seasonal decor, thoughtful little gifts, and those little discoveries that make you so glad you stopped in. I have to tell you, if you're an extra care member, you're going to save on things you're already buying. And those extra bucks really do add up. Just watching that total go down at the checkout never, ever gets old. I know life's busy. We're all juggling a lot. And that's why I think those little unexpected moments of joy matter so much. So, the next time you're running errands, stop by your local CVS pharmacy. You may go in for something you need, but don't be surprised if you leave with something that simply makes your day a little brighter. Visit your local CVS pharmacy, sponsored by CVS. I think all the stuff you talk about when it comes to communication is so important because relationships fall apart because of bad communication. Work relationships go sideways because of bad communication. I mean, you can, and you think they understand you. You thought you communicated it. Didn't
Yeah.
you understand what I was saying when I said X? But will you talk to that point? Because I think some people have trouble being completely clear. They assume the man they're with should understand their feelings, or the boss that they're dealing with, should kind of get A, B, or C.
Yeah, there's this quote that I love that it says, the number one problem with communication is the illusion that it has taken place. And
That's so good.
I think that is just gold because most of the time, the biggest cause of miscommunication is what was said was not the thing that was heard.
Okay.
I was like, I said this because you
Yeah.
know what it's like in relationships
Yeah.
where somebody replies back to you and they go, that's not what I said. And you're like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what you said. And you go, I wish I had it on camera. I wish I
Yeah.
had this recorded so you could see exactly how you said it. And the truth is, we are very bad subjective, judges of how we say things. We hear it in our head, but we're not great at also accepting how it is to receive it. Communication is not just something said, it also has to be received. And when you continue to give voice to only the unvoiced expectations and expect people to read between the lines, you are just setting yourself up for disappointment. Instead of saying that's not what I said, turn that into tell me what you heard. And
Oh,
tell me what you heard. What am I missing?
yeah.
When you stop to say, okay, there's a disconnect here. Let's talk about the disconnect instead of me telling you how
Yeah.
dumb you are, how much you don't care, how this is always you and you never listen. Instead of going towards the person, you say, okay, well, there must be a disconnect here. Help me. Let's stop and let's break it down. And though that sounds really simple to say, let's time out and let's talk about the process of how the communication is happening, rather than talking about the content of the communication. It sounds simple, but it is everything when you're able to break down and find where's the knot in the string.
By the way, when you just said the thing about, hey, wait, tell me what you heard, my shoulders literally dropped down because we've all been in the, wait, what? But difficult conversations, all of them. I mean, I don't know how many you've had in your lifetime. I've had a bunch too, where you have to have this conversation, but sometimes there's a philosophy, at least it was in our family growing up, is it will die on the vine eventually. So let it go. And,
Yeah,
why are we going to rock the boat? Everything is fine. In the course of all the problems, this one ain't so big. So we don't need to hash it out.
right.
I think a lot of people just dust things away. Why is it important to have these kind of conversations? And when do they reach the level of, oh God, we have to have it?
Yeah, it's definitely something that is generational.
Yeah.
I would say I feel like here and now in the times that we live in, communication is more talked about than it's ever been. Is that there's
Hmm.
still that, hush, let's keep it under wraps. What
Hmm.
would the neighbors think? We can't let people know, how we really are. Or we don't want to bring it up. We don't want to ruin the moment. And we're all here together at this family thing because this grandparent is still alive. And we know once they're gone, we're all, going our separate ways. When you have all these unvoiced things
Yeah.
and you bury them, they are only sure to resurface years, because we know what that's like of parent relationships, especially that there are people listening right now who don't probably communicate with their
Yeah.
mom or their dad anymore because of all the things that were left unsaid. Like that misalignment in relationships, that miscommunication, that estrangement, it doesn't happen in one fell swoop, like one big conversation. It usually
Hmm.
happens because all of these little bitty paper cut conversations where a conversation could have happened,
Hmm.
but it didn't. And so when you leave it unvoiced, those things grow. So how do you know when to bring something up? To me, it's always the next day rule. If I'm still carrying it the next day,
Mm.
if I'm still carrying it the next day, time has a way of shifting priorities. And so if something's bothering me right now, it may not bother me in the morning. But if I wake up and I'm still carrying it and it's still
Hmm.
heavy on my heart, it's something that needs to be voiced. And when you can say, "Hey, I need to tell you something that's been heavy on my heart," people listen. When you say,
Hmm.
I need to tell you something that's been tugging on my heart, there's something about when you invoke the heart. It's a
Hmm.
difference between Hoda, me asking you, saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" and me
Hmm.
also, or me asking, "Hey, Hoda, how's your heart?" Right?
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
something about you're not going to get the
Yeah.
same answer. And
Yeah.
so whenever you invoke the heart, I think that has a way of getting right to the point of the conversation rather than sweeping it under the rug.
So if when you said there are people who haven't spoken to their parents, their mom, their dad, their siblings, somebody, a best friend from years gone by, how, if that's the case and it's been a freeze out for, a while, how do you go about repairing if it's on your heart, which I'm sure it is when people wake up and it's a
Yeah.
birthday or it's whatever day? How do you even start the conversation or the process of thawing that?
I like the word thaw.
Yeah.
I like to follow this approach that I teach, and it's one beginning with the words "I know."
Mm,
Sounds like I know there's distance between us. I know we haven't spoken in a while. I know things aren't how we both want them to be. Right? It's saying the already understated. It's all we already both know. We don't have to voice it. It's unspoken.
mhm,
Two is I'm not. This is where you forecast what they're already thinking about the conversation, the
mm,
rebuttal. So it would be, I know there's a distance between us. I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm not bringing things, rehash old
mhm,
wounds. I'm
mhm,
not trying to, it is, I'm
mhm,
not, you're addressing that.
mhm,
And three is, I'm ready. And it's not,
mm,
I'm ready to talk because
mm.
nobody probably wants to hear you talk. It's, I'm ready to listen, right?
Oh, I'm ready to listen. Okay.
It's not, I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to listen. And there's something about somebody saying, I'm ready to listen makes them want to lean into
Mm,
it more because now you're an empty cup, right? Instead of
mhm.
saying, "Hey, I have a full glass and I'm ready to splash it on you whenever you're ready." It's me saying, "Hey, I'm an empty vessel right now. I know things are not where we
Yeah.
want them to be, and I'm not at all interested in trying to rehash the past. I'm ready to listen whenever
Mm,
you are." And so there's something about that incorporates that element of I can affirm how you feel without having to agree with it.
mm,
And that must be hard. I can see why you feel that way. If that's how you interpreted it, of course you would think that I am everything that you say that I am right now. And there's
yeah.
something about the contrasts that's going to make that conversation, have a better chance of coming to life.
Would you have that convo in person or on the phone, or does it matter?
Ideally, you want it in person. There's
Yeah.
nothing like seeing somebody face
Yeah.
to face. There's nothing that can ever replace that. Face to face is the most high emotion medium that you have. Text is the lowest.
Yeah.
Email's the lowest. I could tell you if you asked me a question by text, Hoda, and I just said okay, you'd be like, well, what kind of okay is that? Is he
Yeah.
mad? Is he not? Does he think it's dumb?
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
Phone is also great. Some people don't
Hmm.
get that chance because the other person just kind of
Hmm.
ices them out. I think vo voice texts are really good.
Or yeah.
Voicemails are good. Anything that they can hear your tone of your voice. If you put it in words, most often, unless it's a handwritten letter, which I think adds to that emotion and
Mm-hmm.
character that is unique to you. But if it's something that is not unique, such as text or
Mm-hmm.
email, then they will read they'll interpret your emotions for you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's never positive. They'll read
Yeah.
it in the worst light.
Yeah. You're right. I was just thinking about this guy I was interviewing, and he said something about, he goes, think of someone who you wanted to say thank you to, who you just haven't for whatever reason. He goes, now write him a letter, and describe all the ways that you wanted to thank them. And then he said, and then I want to see you walk up to the door and ring the doorbell and read it. Just read it right to them. And I was just imagining the feeling of someone walking up who and it's like words unspoken because we all
Mhm.
carry sort of words unspoken. But
Yeah.
I think back to the kind of difficult conversations, I always weirdly feel better after one. I hate them when they're happening. You're like, this is the worst. My heart is
Yeah.
pounding. I'm sweating. Like,
Yeah.
I just feel so bad. But what have you learned, or I mean, with all the people you've been dealing with over time, what
hmm
happens after you finally say whatever the thing is you've wanted to say for so long, but have been holding on to it?
Yeah. The moment the difficult conversation is over, if you handle it well, let's put that,
Yeah. Yeah.
exception. If you approach it with wanting to understand more than trying to prove, if you
Mm,
approach it in a way that's uh, softer, if not just in demeanor, but also in tone. I'm not saying you can't be assertive. Let's say you handle it exactly how you want it to be. What I
hmm
have found time and time again, that the conflict they were so scared of was the very breakthrough that they were missing, that they were
mm,
needing the most. And when you can have that conversation with that brother you haven't seen in 3 years, or you can have that conversation with that supervisor or that difficult thing you need to say to that spouse, and you reach it and you're able to actually come together through that conflict because now you've been through something. You've created trust. It's a weight off your shoulders. All of a
mm,
sudden you feel like you life looks better. Right?
mhm.
Relationships are better. I am somebody that truly believes that if you want to heal your relationships, it starts with the next conversation. I mean,
Mm,
you have that ability in how we communicate. And I rarely, if ever, whenever somebody's told me that, yeah, I tried it, but it made it worse, it was usually not on their account. It was
mm.
because the other person, wasn't
What
ready, and you can't control all of that.
what if it's a one-way street? I
Yeah,
mean, some people are with spouses who are just set in their ways.
right.
It's sort of like someone was saying to me, like every few years you should reintroduce yourself to your spouse. Like, I don't like Applebee's anymore. I used to love it, and I don't
That's
eat
right.
there. I don't
Yeah,
want to go sit in that same restaurant. But you always liked it. But you always like a jean jacket. It's like I don't like a
exactly.
jean jacket. But
Right.
if you get to a point where your spouse is like, kind of, this is our relationship and this is life, this is the way it is, and they're not open to this kind of discussion, what is a person to do? Because I have friends who are in that category. Their spouses
Yeah.
don't really want to hear it. Yeah.
Well, I think there's the key issue is whether they want to, or they want to
Mm.
hear it. It's hard to be in a relationship where you're the only one rowing, where you feel like your shoulders are just, and there's probably people we both know, their
Yeah.
shoulders are getting a little tired.
Yeah.
And there has to be, to me, two things. One is the ability to think outside of yourself,
Mm.
meaning to be able to repair when conflict and ruptures happen. And the second of all, you have to be able to take accountability. I think that's one of the biggest issues in relationships is where one person refuses to take accountability.
Hmm.
So our
Yeah.
patterns just continue to repeat. I can choose to have a very difficult conversation with you, Hoda, and you may completely disagree. that's still something that within myself, I still have that same amount of relief because I said it. I chose to say what I needed to say. And at some point, there has to be, which conversation am I going to take more? Which one ranks higher in priority? The relationship and conversation I'm having with myself and who I am,
Mm,
or the conversation I have to have with you? And if I always have the conversation with you taking priority over the conversation with me, well, then I will always make sure that I'm not okay unless you're okay, right?
mm,
That's the much more insecure way to approach it. I have
mhm.
my grandparents to do this thing where they have a yearly contract that they actually write out. Now, it's not like enforceable or anything, but so they at their anniversary, they have like written things
Like
of,
what?
like who's gonna handle the trash, who's gonna, this is how many times we're gonna go on a date night, this is who's gonna be responsible for this. And it's in humor, it's in fun
Yeah.
of just how you said, you're not always married to the same
Mm,
person.
yeah.
I mean, you can be married to the same human, but
Hmm.
sometimes not always the same person.
Hmm.
We're always changing and growing. And so they kind of do this thing. My grandfather will say, "You sure you want to go another round?" And they make that, they'll sign it and kind of keep it
Oh, I
amongst
love it.
themselves
Oh, they
is
got to,
really more.
that's got to catch. I mean, sorry, that has got to catch. It's super cute.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about conversations that have always been hard for me up until I think, I mean, I hate to say this, but like my mid 50s. I'm 61 right now, my mid 50s. So, all through my professional career, I have said thank you. I was hired at, at my very first job, and I was making more working at Ponderosa, and I was happy to take the job because it was like, it's like more of an education. But as it went through all these different jobs throughout, I knew I was underpaid.
Mm.
With my co-anchor, I was underpaid here and there. I was hired at Dateline, and I was the lowest paid correspondent. I was making less than I did when I was in local, but I wanted that job. And this continued on and on and on. And when you start behind the eight ball,
Mm.
it takes a while to get to it. And I remembered once saying to my agents, they said, "Well, this is all they're going to be paying." I go, I don't love it enough. So, you know, ask for this number or we're not doing it." And it was when I finally like got some moxie. And the agent said, "They're going to say no." I go, "Okay, well, you can ask." So she asked and she said, "Oh my God, they said yes." I was like, okay. So the next time I knew where the bar was and it went on. But the conversation of this is what I'm worth, this is what I believe I bring to the table was extremely hard for me
Yeah.
because I always felt lucky to be at the network, lucky to be here, sort of like, wow, I was having pinch me moments up until the moment I left. Like,
Yeah.
wow, how does this happen? So those kinds of conversations, whether you're in a room with your bosses, you're asking for a raise, you need whatever it is, how to start those and how to have the confidence because you can say the words and not believe it and look like a scared, deer and
Yeah.
they're going to say come back later, not
Right.
right now. It's not a good time, those
Yeah.
lines.
Awesome question. I think that whenever, especially you are, let's say you've put in the work
Hmm.
to establish yourself, whatever in your resume, or you know that you're going to be starting from somewhere. And eventually you've
Hmm.
gotten to a place where you feel like, okay, I got a lot under my wings here. And here's what I know I feel like I am worth compared to what everybody else is doing. What I have found for those that I have guided through a lot of these situations is where you talk about the role more so of ego. Let's say you're wanting to hire somebody
Okay.
and you can either start talking about them as a person, or what I like to say is start talking about the role. So we have an assistance manager position, and this manager position is going to require this, this, and this. And I'd love for that person to be you. And whoever's going to be in that role is going to need to do X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
Now it works the same way, and here's the magic of it that I've seen is when I've seen people interview or have these discussions with their supervisors and say, whatever position, let's say they're trying to get into it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this assistant manager's position that I'm going for, or whoever this slot is, or whoever I choose to work for,
Mm-hmm.
I need to see is going to require X, Y, and Z from what I'm
Mm-hmm.
bringing to the table, and I know my value without having to go into it because you already have my resume and all the recs and
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is going to require X, Y, and Z. And when you come into the conversation with requirements, people respect you more than if you have none. So when you
Mm-hmm.
come in with a level of, I'm not talking like, swagger where you're saying this is what I have to have and this is what it's going to be and you need to walk away. There's something about requirements that say when I come into this, it's going to require this much of my time,
Mm-hmm.
this amount of money, this position. If I'm going to, I would
Mm-hmm.
hope that it would be this organization, right?
Right.
Whoever I work for, this role I'm going to fill is going to be
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z for me to fill it. I would love for that
Yeah.
organization to be
To be
you,
you.
and
That's a good
so
flip.
exactly. And so it makes them think, oh, wow, okay, one, this person has confidence. Second, I know they definitely believe in themselves. And if they believe in themselves, it makes me
Hmm.
believe in them.
Yeah,
And then
true.
three, man, I don't want them to go off to somebody else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they tend to get to the yeses more quickly than if you come in and, well, I'd really hope it would be really nice if. No,
Yeah.
you need to come in with, I know what I'm worth, I know what I've done,
Yes.
and I'd hope that this would be the organization. If not, I have some others
That's
that I'm
a
talking to too.
Yeah, that's okay. Oh, I like that. What about, because, and this is kind of in the same vein, but being heard in a meeting, being heard when you are somebody who's, it's a big group setting
Hmm.
and and a lot of women who are listening to this, I'm sure have heard this, have had this feeling is you're saying something and it's, your voice is softer, whatever, you don't get sick. And then they call on the other guy who's next to you, or you say something and someone else repeats it. And then they're like, great job, Bill. Yeah. And you're like, I just said that literally 1 second ago. But how do you
Yeah.
cut through how do you cut through in a meeting so that you can feel confident enough to state what you want to state and,
Mm.
make sure that you're heard?
So first would be you want
Hmm.
to grab attention. So
Hmm.
what that is, you grabbing the mic. Second of all, you want to add curiosity to make them want to
Hmm.
listen. And then three, once you have that attention and that curiosity, then you need to lead with authority. So this would, to me, is
Hmm.
what it would sound like. You get people's attention when you use their name in a very
Hmm.
steady tone, not like as if you're asking permission. Like if I were to ask you, can you pass the salt, Hoda? I wouldn't ask it like, "Can you pass the salt?" Like as if you don't know what it is. Like you have to say it in a tone because there's some people. Let's say I needed to interrupt you and you're talking in a
Yeah.
meeting, or there's a chance
Yeah.
for me to communicate, and I was like, "Hoda," like people would be like, "Huh?" As if you're
Yeah.
more insecure. But if I was like,
Questioning.
"Hoda,"
Right.
second all is you need to add contrast. By that, I want you to say, I see something different, or I take another approach, or I get there a different way. And people go, oh, okay,
Yeah. What is
what do
that?
you, exactly. Because if I just led with, you know what, I have a thought here. They're like, oh, another thought? Like
Yeah.
that's not going to do anything. We all have
Yeah.
thoughts. I need to hear that you have something that's going to move the conversation, the discussion forward. Once you have that, three, anything you can use around the word direction. Direction is a great captain word. And so when I can say, Hoda, you know what, I get there a different way. To me, I see the direction of what we can do is blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And so what you're saying is, hey, if while I have the wheel of the ship, this is the direction that I would take. And at that moment, it allows people to go, okay, do we want to follow that direction?
Hmm.
And take it there, or do we want to continue to open the discussion? But it's going to prevent it from somebody just going, okay, that was dumb. Let's move that aside.
Hmm.
Another that I really love, a quick little tip that I teach is if you can use percentages. There's something about
Oh.
percentages, or maybe depending on the context you're in, maybe like an analogy. So, for example, if you come in and say, "Hey, I have an idea," most people will shoot it down because it's not their idea, right? So they
Right.
they want to they want to point out all the holes in it rather than
Yeah.
saying, "Awesome job." But if you come in and say, "Hey, look, I have about 65% of an idea here. I need your help with the other 35." People all of a sudden go, "Oh, okay, let's, the type
What is that?
A,
Yeah.
yeah, they want to go for the 35% because now they see that as the challenge to meet.
Oh,
Or
interesting.
yeah, or if you say, look, I think I'm in the red zone. I need help kind of pushing it into the end zone here. There's something about using analogies that say, I need your help rather than saying, you know what, I don't really know here. I could totally be wrong. Get rid of any of
Boom.
that
It's
language.
over.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. You want to push the conversation
Oh.
forward.
Oh, speaking of that language, I was meeting with this CEO coach because I'm I run this company now called Joy 101, and I haven't, I've worked in capacities of leadership, but never as a boss or a CEO. So this guy gave me some advice, which sounds kind of like what you were just saying. We were having a conversation, and he was like, "Tell me about this, that, and the other. What's good? What's upsetting? What's this? What's that?" I was like, "Okay." So I was kind of upset about X, and I was sort of about why, and I was a little bit pissed about it. And so after I was telling him this whole thing, he goes, "Stop." I go, "What?" He goes, "You were kinda pissed." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "No, no, you were pissed. It's okay. You were sort of upset."
Yeah.
He goes, "No, you were upset." And he said, "Start pulling out those words." He
Mm.
goes, "In your language, don't stop dead and go, oh God, there it is again." He goes, "Just recognize, oh, there it is. Oh, there it goes." And then I started looking through, this is so funny, Jefferson, I was looking through my old texts. I
Texts.
was like, oh my God. Hey, it was
Yeah.
like if I pulled out all those words and I saw afterwards,
Hmm.
it's so much clearer, A, what direction we're going is clear when I take out all of the, hey, I was wondering if when you're finished with this, and don't worry if, and then by the
Yeah.
time you're done, they're like, is that a priority or not? The person on the
Right.
receiving end. Like, I don't get it. But words like that do matter, right?
Yes. Yes. A million times. Yes. Especially the adverbs, the words that end in ly.
Okay.
So many people will begin their sentence. It's their time to talk in the meeting, and they go, "So basically, like that, you've already cut yourself down."
Why do we hate that? Why is that a no?
It slows down the prose.
Yeah.
It's not needed. If I say, well, clearly, well, if it was clear, you wouldn't need that word. If it was, well, obviously, well, it was obvious, you wouldn't have to state it. And so when we think of the ly words or the other adverbs like just, like so,
Yeah.
very, really, why can't you just be happy for them? Why do you have to say, I'm so happy for
Yeah.
there's something about the filling it with fluff. So imagine
Yeah.
if I wanted to come in and said, you know, hey, just wanted to check on you, just saying hi. Instead of that, I leaned into it and said, hey, I wanted to say hi to you. How are you doing? Like it's something about stepping into your
Yeah.
language rather than away. And to me, I compare it to adding ice cubes to your drink. They're like, well, I'm kind of, I'm not really.
Yeah.
You're filling your sentence, you're watering down your message. To me, you don't need them. Get rid of them, serve your words
Get
neat.
rid of them.
Yeah, serve your words
Serve your
neat.
words neat. Is that
Yeah.
one of your t-shirts?
Yeah, I should. I should.
Oh my God, with a little bourbon cup, we can see the whole thing. It's
That's
it's
right.
all, I love that. I love that. Um, you know, there are certain people for me who are like energizing too. Like
Yeah.
when I'm around them, my cup fills up too. And there are certain people who they're sort of depleting, That's just when
Mm.
you're done, you hang up the phone. We've all had the person you hang up and you go, oh my God. Like you don't just,
Yeah.
But this always brings up boundaries because sometimes you gotta have conversations. Maybe not all of them you want to, but talk, if you would, about like I like to call them loving boundaries, but putting boundaries up so that the world and people don't kind of drain your battery.
Yeah. Boundaries, I mean, there's something that you cannot do without, especially in conversation, whether it's something that's a very loving relationship to your, in the office, and you're having to make it very
Mhm.
clear where you stand on things. How I like to talk about boundaries is a very simple formula because it can get really, there's so much on boundaries that it's easy to get lost. To me, it is simply putting the boundary in place of me, I, beginning with the word I. So instead of you can't talk to me that way. Instead of
Mhm.
that, which is only ensuring that they have all the control, instead I'm
Mhm.
going to say, I don't respond to that tone. I don't respond to
Mm.
disrespect. When somebody
Mm.
raises their voice, I don't respond to that volume. Right? It has
Mm.
nothing to do with them, it has everything to do with me, as if my own operator's manual. If you want to
Mm.
communicate with me, this is the yeses and the nos.
Okay.
If it's a no, then we're not going to communicate that way. That's how that's going to go. So it would be, I don't respond to disrespect. If you continue to speak to me in this manner or in this way, and third is this is the end of the conversation. That's
Oh.
how I like to put it because when you say the end of the conversation, what happens is if they want to talk and continue the conversation, then it is incumbent on them to change the attitude. And
Yeah.
so whenever, even with my kids, and I do it very lovingly, and I'll say, look, I'm not going to respond
Hmm.
to that rude answer. Okay. If you want me to come play with you, if you don't change, I'll say, if you don't change how you're talking to me, then I'm not gonna be able to come play with you right now. And I mean, just all of a
Yeah, that's
sudden
good.
they change it right into that mood or whatever it is, and it goes all the way elevated to plenty of times I've been on the phone. Like I know what it's like to hang up the phone, and go, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
with that
Yeah.
that person, and it's like, hey, look, I don't respond um, to being spoken to that way. If this is the
Hmm.
way that you want to handle things, then this needs to be the end of the conversation. And
Hmm.
the best thing about it is, if you're going to have that consequence, you are going to hang up. You don't just click, you don't just hang up, right? That's not the assertive way to do it. You need to
Hmm.
speak it out loud. I'm gonna end the conversation now. Or I'm gonna leave the room now. I'm gonna get out of the car now. There's something about calling your shot like you're in a game of pool that says what I say I'm gonna
Yeah.
do, I'm going to do. It's like
Hmm.
it's calling backboard, when you make a shot.
That's so good. This is good. So I was just, as you were talking, I was just, not that I was thinking about how your life must have changed since all of this has happened to you. Um, just how weird is it? Like, what is happening with your life now that people probably recognize you and say, hi? Like, what is life like
Yeah.
for you?
It's a lot of it's trying to get settled, Hoda. I mean, it
Yeah.
is weird. It is
Hmm.
weird to imagine making videos only in your car for,
Yeah.
a year and a half and not seeing any human. And then it's a whole thing. But I've learned that as soon as you get a taste of fame, you got to spit it out. Like it's just not it's not great for I've learned the mistakes of
Yeah.
trying to think that you have to say yes to everything because you never know if it's going to
Yes.
stop, and like when is the ride going to stop, and at this point I've learned how to say no and find out here. This is what I've learned, Hoda, is
Yeah.
what I used to do was I would think in my mind that what's best for the business is what's best for
Mm.
the family. And I have learned through pain and hardship and learned it the hard way. You have to flip it of what's best for the family is what's best for the business. And so trying to figure out this whole world that I'm in, and I know you and I have mutual friends in this space of like,
Hmm.
how do you do this? I mean,
Yes.
I went to law school where I
Hmm.
studied how to be an attorney. And then I'm in this world where I never even thought this was a occupation or what it
Hmm.
existed. And so even if my future self came and warned me, I wouldn't be able to believe them because there's not like a blog that says, "Hey, your whole life blew up online. Here's what to do. Here's what to do
Here's like,
next."
right.
Yeah, yeah,
ABCs.
yeah. Yeah. And the biggest
Like,
thing is knowing and telling, people of I make plenty of mistakes. Yeah, my thing is not
yeah.
at all. I can't tell you how to be perfect. I can tell you how to fix it when it doesn't because I've done it myself.
Well, you know what's so interesting? Because when there is any public facing life, or I shouldn't even say public facing, anyone who's got an all consuming career or a busy
Yeah.
career life, and this happened to me a lot, which is one of the reasons why I decided to step away when my kids were the age that they are, which is now 7 and 9, is that from the morning, from the beginning of the day, 3:30 a.m. until probably 4 p.m. when you end up coming home, which is around dinner time for them, 4:35. You've given every ounce of stuff
Mm,
you had away all day.
yeah.
And I was even seeing, Ben Sass was talking about this in one of his interviews, the congressman. He said, I used to think it was like a badge of honor to have a whole bunch of hotel keys to show all the places I've been. I would save them and save them and save them, where he was giving all of his time and effort,
Ugh,
which was to work. And I felt the same, to work. And then when you come home and your kid's like, hey, you're like, hi, you're already
yeah.
barely functioning,
Right.
and you got nothing left in the tank. So this doesn't have to do with anyone who's in a job that is public facing or not. It's any job or
Mm,
anything when you're out of juice at the end of the day. So what do you do? I guess it's just a matter of just shifting the whole
yeah.
game.
Yes. Like I said, I learned the hard way. After the book launched last year in March
Mm-hmm.
in the reception, and like it was just, I took time off last July and August to fix myself.
Mm,
Because anytime you're more public facing, in my view, it boosts all the good and it also boosts all the bad. And so
mm-hmm.
whatever was a bad habit then becomes a much bigger bad habit. Like everything incrementally is harder. The good is really good and the
Mm-hmm.
bad's really bad. And so you have to be able to learn how to manage
Mm-hmm.
and work on that. Because to me, what you said is exactly spot on. It answers the question of who's getting the best of me. And is it
Mm-hmm.
everybody that's online, on social
Mm-hmm.
media or who you're speaking to, or is it your
Yeah.
family or your kids who's
Yeah.
getting the best version. Why in the world would I ever give my kids the second best version
Yeah.
of
Right.
myself? And so
So
that's
you
that's
had to
where it's
do a
been for me.
realignment. Yeah.
Yeah, we had to do a total realignment. Yeah.
And I think anyone can do some. Like, I get it because I feel like, like I always think this about Olympic athletes. Like, you can't be great at something and be balanced. Simone Biles and Michael Phelps weren't worrying about balance. They were just worrying about being really, really good, and they were.
Yeah.
And then in life, when things start to, then things shift, and you can, now Michael Phelps has other things and Simone Biles the same. But it's hard to be great and have all the things that you want. And I think sometimes people choose. And I think, many, many times people will choose the work piece because the work piece is giving them the money for the vacations and the
Yeah.
work piece is giving them all that stuff.
Yeah. Very like cats in the cradle
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh
I
God.
think
Yeah.
I think I do understand and appreciate how when you're in the grind and you feel like, who am I if I am not this, or what I've always dreamed I could be, or what, this has been my one ambition. And I
Hmm.
forgot who said it, but it was like this study that we're very bad at predicting how we're going to feel after something. And
Hmm.
so for good or bad. So if we think we're going to get that Olympic medal or that
Hmm.
promotion and we get it, we kind of don't feel as good as we thought
Yeah.
we would. And
Yeah.
then also for the bad, when it's like, oh no, this could never happen. If my marriage fails, if I ever get
Hmm.
fired, that'd be worse. And then it happens, and you're like, this wasn't
Yeah.
that bad.
That
Like
bad. Yeah.
it's
That's
um,
actually that's so smart.
and so we're just not
Yeah.
good predictors of certain events in our
Hmm.
life. And so for me, I have to go, mm, am I inconveniencing my family for my comfort and
Mm.
my ego? Am I inconveniencing somebody
Hmm.
else? Am I putting, there's certain things of like, there might be somebody listening right now and they go, okay, well, I really want to go do this. And I feel like I need to ask, put my other
Hmm.
person, my partner in the position of like, hey, can I go do this?
Hmm. Yeah.
And you're you should have never even put them in that position to
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
yes. Like you
Yeah.
should have just
Right.
chosen the family.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that takes time and effort
Yes. That was good.
and diligence. And so I can tell you, um, that it's been such a blessing, Hoda, to be able to touch the people we've been able to touch. It's just a never ending
Well,
feeling.
I am so happy for your success.
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy for all the things that you're creating and you're putting good out in the world. And I always feel like we have one ride around the sun. Might
Mm.
as well put good stuff out into it. I heard you with Thomas Rhett. I love Thomas so much
Yeah.
on your podcast. So I encourage everyone to listen to Jefferson's podcast. I heard you on the Diary of a CEO. I saw you with Mel Robbins. I mean, people now after saying this are going to be like, "Oh my God, I see Jefferson everywhere," just like me. So I just want to end with one final question before you head off. This podcast is called Joy 101. So I like to ask all my guests about what is bringing them joy. I know you just got off a flight from
hmm
Australia, so probably sleep would be up there. But what's bringing you joy these days?
What's bringing me joy is knowing that my kids, it's just my kids. You know,
Hmm.
my to be able to say no to things and say yes to
Hmm.
them and
Mm.
my wife, and to like we did this trip in Australia, and I did it so much differently from the time that we traveled and did London, and I was so focused on publicity and press and I just we did it so differently where I just got to be
Yeah.
dad and be present,
Yeah.
and my phone is full, Hoda, full of pictures and videos, and it's just the biggest joy that I can't, it's hard for me not to look at one of my kids and just tear up. And that's that feeling of
Oh,
knowing that it could have been different and I could have cared, about a whole different
yeah.
path. But to me, it's just, it's bringing this into a moment of so much sheer joy of of peace. It's been wonderful, and truly, I look forward to would love to you for you to be a mentor to me of how how
Oh,
to how to how to deal with this world.
navigate.
Yeah, no
Well, you seem to
joke.
be doing a pretty good job. Tell Sierra I said hello and your
I
kids
sure
too,
will. I
okay?
sure
All right.
will.
Thank you, Jefferson. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Hoda.
Okay, that was a beautiful conversation. I love Jefferson so much. I feel like we're friends already. One thing that I'm kind of learning is how to slow down, how to like not rush through life, how to not rush through important conversations, like Jefferson was saying, just how to slow down and observe. So, on our Joy 101 app, you guys, I was listening to this incredible woman who, for just 2 or 3 minutes, showed me how to slow down. Her name is Anna Katsis, and she lives in Greece. And she works with us at Joy 101. But what she does is she just captures life's small moments. So, well, sit back for a second, take a deep breath first, and let's listen to Anna Katsis.
This is the story of someone who has learned to notice. I used to feel that life moved by too quickly, and I realized it was up to me to slow it down, to create time to pause. I started by noticing small things, like the way the leaves look when the sunlight hits them, the golden color that washes over when the sun rises, how the birds sound as the world wakes up. I started to notice things in my routine, like how much I love starting my day with a warm cup of tea, using herbs from the garden and boiling it in the kettle, adding honey that a beekeeper made not too far from my village, and sipping it slowly while gazing out the window, imagining what the day could hold. I noticed how beautiful it is to sit and watch my curtains gently flowing in the breeze. How happy I am to see my cat every day when I open the door to feed him. The way he follows me to his bowl. How calming it is to pet him. and just observe what he does. The way he also observes me as I tend to the garden to water it. The more I slowed down, the more I noticed, and I realized how much beauty lies in everyday life, in the ordinary. And so, if there's one thing I recommend, it's to take a moment to pause and look around you, because that's when the magic happens. That's when the ordinary becomes extraordinary.
Beautiful words of wisdom. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for listening to Joy 101, the podcast.